So Hong Kong has been changing a lot in the past few years, especially if you ask a lot of Western-minded people. A lot of people tend to say that Hong Kong is no longer what it once was. It's lost its excitement. It's kind of on a decline, things like that. Now, whether or not you agree with that, this has left a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking for a place to form an offshore company to wonder, is the Hong Kong offshore company still worth setting up in 2025? In case you're not aware, Hong Kong has been kind of like the de facto king of offshore companies for pretty much since offshore companies have been a thing. They offer 0% taxes in Hong Kong while giving you access to a great reputable jurisdiction to form your company, as well as great banking, great payment processing, generally all the things that you want from an offshore company. So in this video, I wanted to discuss whether forming an offshore Hong Kong company is still worth it in 2025, who it's right for, who it is perhaps not right for, and sort of discuss that, because obviously this is always a case-by-case thing. And while I don't believe that a lot of the political changes and whatnot are really too much of a concern from a business owner's perspective, and we'll discuss why that is my view, despite of this, the Hong Kong company also faces a lot of competition. So I kind of also wanted to compare the Hong Kong company to all these other options and whether I think the Hong Kong offshore company still has its place in 2025, and if so, for who and for what types of situations it is the right choice in this day and age. So firstly, before we get into the crux of the video, obviously if you're looking to set up a Hong Kong company, if you're an entrepreneur who's making even a decent amount of money, I don't recommend trying to do this alone with the government directly and things like that, because obviously most likely you're not from there, a different culture, different systems, everything like that. I would highly recommend just using a service provider to do this for you, who can essentially handle the process for you so you don't need to worry about it and you can spend your time making money. So if you're looking to set up a Hong Kong company, you can check out Awesome in the first link down below in the description. They are my chosen partner for Hong Kong setup, because what they offer is essentially everything you need, as in they will set up your Hong Kong company for you with zero paperwork on your part, fully online, so you don't need to go to Hong Kong or anything like that. They will get you everything that is required for your Hong Kong company, like your local director, secretary, everything like that. And they will offer you support in terms of the accounting, as well as doing the annual audit, which is going to be a requirement for the Hong Kong company. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at their Google reviews, 4.8 stars from more than 400 reviews. So if after watching this video, you feel like Hong Kong company is the right structure for you, which for many people it still is, you can use that link to set one up very easily. With that said, if we just take a step back for a moment, what are the things that you generally want to look for when you're setting up a company? Obviously, where you set up your company doesn't have to be where you live. And this is really where the Hong Kong company shines. A lot of the time when you set up a Hong Kong company, you're not setting it up because you want to live in Hong Kong. You're setting it up precisely because of the tax benefits that the structure offers when you don't live in Hong Kong. Specifically on the tax side, what you usually want is what's called a tax neutral setup. So what this means is that if you don't run the company from the country where the company is registered, that country is not going to tax the company. With the Hong Kong company, you get what's called the offshore exemption, meaning that if you have no operations in Hong Kong and it has to be genuinely, like you cannot have any connection to Hong Kong, you can legally qualify for 0% tax in Hong Kong. Now, obviously, if you run this company from Spain, Spain is still going to tax that company, but it just means that you don't have to worry about taxes in Hong Kong as well as Spain at the same time. So that's the first thing that we really like with the Hong Kong company. The second thing that you're going to look for is payment processing. You want to have access to good payment processors like Stripe, AirWallex, what have you. With the Hong Kong company, you also get this. You get access to pretty much all of the major payment processors. It doesn't have the lowest fees out there. Like the basic fee is going to be 3.4% per transaction. We'll compare different options there in a moment. The third thing you want is good reputation. So generally, just when you're doing business with people, if you have your company set up in some weird jurisdiction that they've never seen before, they might think twice just for that reason alone, whether they want to do business with you or not. And there might be issues with payments being flagged and things like that. So you don't want that to like reduce the friction with actually getting paid from your customers. Hong Kong is obviously one of the largest financial centers in the entire world. I think it's the third largest financial center in the world. Everyone knows that. No one's going to bat an eye. If you have a Hong Kong company, they need to send money to Hong Kong. That is going to be absolutely fine. And the fourth thing that you're going to look for is the ease of maintenance, as well as the cost of setting up and maintaining the company, everything like that. And the benefit with Hong Kong is that it is a very small country. I mean, it's not a country technically, but I mean, it's a territory that lives off commerce. Like commerce and business is how Hong Kong makes its money. So they have every incentive to make it as easy as possible for anyone to run a business there, which is why they are still, despite some of the political changes, whatever, one of the easiest places in the world to run a business, and they keep making it easier. It's generally still, from strictly an entrepreneur's perspective, tends to get better rather than less good for ease of doing business, processes, everything like that. So when does a Hong Kong company still make sense? Well, number one, again, if you want to have a proper corporation, you want to get investment, you want to perhaps sell the company, and the fact that you need to have these annual audited financials is not a big deal for you because you have a large enough scale that it's not a big deal that you just hire someone to do it for you. Like, for example, Awesome, obviously, if you use the services, then in that case, it can even be a benefit to have these audited financials because it's going to increase the legitimacy of your business when you are showing it to investors or potential acquirers or something like that. So if that is the case and you want to live around the world where you don't perhaps know exactly where you're going to live, and or the place where you're going to live doesn't really have an attractive company option for you. A lot of cases, let's say you want to live in Thailand and you want to have this like proper corporate structure, the Hong Kong company is still going to be sort of the obvious option, especially if you're like above the small business threshold of the UAE, where if you have a UAE company, you would have to pay the 9% corporate tax and things like that. So those are really the two main benefits. It's still a very reputable business structure, and it is a very mobile structure where again you get that 0% tax benefit in Hong Kong no matter where you live around the world. Obviously, again, keeping in mind that you probably gonna have to pay taxes on it wherever you do actually manage and control this company from. Just touching on like the political aspect and the changes that have been happening in Hong Kong, largely, like if you actually look at this practically from a business owner's perspective, not that much has changed. Sure, there were some protests and things like that, and all of that has calmed down now. But from a business owner's perspective, not much has changed. If anything, it tends to become easier to do business in Hong Kong for foreigners. For example, they just, I think this year, introduced some measures to make registering a business and doing business easier. I forgot exactly the details there. And generally, again, Hong Kong is a place that lives off commerce. If they make it difficult for people to run a business, they know that they're dead. They cannot afford to do that. They need to attract foreign capital, foreign entrepreneurs, which is exactly why I don't think that this company structure and the tax benefits are going anywhere. But obviously, no one knows exactly what is going to happen. It's always a good idea to keep an eye on things for sure. And lastly, obviously, the Hong Kong company makes a lot of sense, especially if you sell to China. Obviously, they're going to have very good integrations with Chinese payment processors like WeChat Pay, Alipay, things like that. Probably that's not going to be a majority of this audience because this is an English language channel. So a lot of the time, if you have the Hong Kong company, you might also want to have something like the US LLC as a payment processor when selling to the West. But if you have a bigger operation, the Hong Kong company is often still good to have as a holding company because let's say you want to have more shareholders, you want to sell stock, things like that. The US LLC isn't really made for that. So I hope that kind of clarifies the benefits of the Hong Kong company when it makes sense and also when it doesn't make sense, which is going to be sort of the inverse of all the points that I talk about when it does make sense. Like for example, if you have a very light operation, something like just the US LLC might be a good option. Just keep an eye on the things that are changing there. If you want to live in Dubai, the Dubai company is going to make more sense. If you want to live in Singapore, the Singapore company is going to make more sense. Obviously, there's many different cases out there that I can't possibly cover in this video, but I hope that that kind of clarifies why the Hong Kong company is popular, why I think it's still a great option for a lot of cases, but obviously no structure is going to be the right choice for absolutely everyone. Now at this point, if you're wondering what is the process to actually set up the Hong Kong company, is it a difficult process? What are the requirements? What do I need, etc.? How much is it going to cost? I'm not going to cover that here because I already made this video right here where I go through the entire process of how to set up a Hong Kong company as a foreigner. So if you're interested in the structure, I highly recommend going and watching that video so you understand the process in detail. So watch that video next and I will see you in the next one.